Hello and welcome to my Pokeradar shiny hunting tutorial. The reason I'm making my own tutorial is because you do not want to go for a 40 chain. Instead, stop chaining at the number you see on screen for your specific encounter rate. Now this video will be split into two parts. Part 1 I'll be explaining exactly what you want to do and exactly what I mean with stop at this chain. And in part 2 I'll explain the code you see on screen right here. So let's start with part 1. I recently was hunting a 5% Cacnea on route 228, and every time my chain failed I had to find a new Cacnea, which took about 20 minutes. If I wanted to reach a 40 chain, I'd have to do about 20 chains, so just for purely setting up the chain I'd have to spend 20 times 20 minutes, which is 400 minutes, which is a little over 6 hours. I thought to myself, wouldn't it be much smarter to stop at a 20 chain, which takes about 4 chains to reach, meaning I'd have to spend about 1 hour and 20 minutes setting up the chain, and sure, it would mean I'd have to spend more time resetting the Pokeradar, but that wouldn't take 5 hours. So just going to a 20 chain and getting the shiny that way would already be much faster than trying to reach a 40 chain without even getting a shiny. With that in mind, I created a code that simulated getting 6.8 million shinies and figured out exactly for every percentage what the smartest chain was to end on. So this table that you see on the screen is where you want to stop chaining. Not at 40, but for instance for a 5%, you want to stop chaining at 14. In none of the cases, according to this list, should you go above a 21 chain. But I also want to make clear, these are simulations. Running the program multiple times will give different numbers, so these numbers may not be the exact optimal numbers. But all of the numbers are within 4 of their optimum, so never go over a 25 chain. It's a waste of time, unless you want to somehow do some form of shiny farm, like say you want 3 shiny Shinx, or just want to get a bunch of shiny shells, as many as you can after reaching your 40 chain. In that case, the 40 chain might still be the smartest option, but if you just want to go for your 1 shiny, please do not go past the chain that's on the list here. Now on to part 2, the coding. As I said, I did 6.8 million simulations. I checked 10,000 times for all 40 possible chains to stop at, per percentage, how long it would take to get a shiny, the amount of time in total it would take for the 10,000 shinies by 10,000 to get an average time. Then I check at which moment in a chain that I stop gave me the lowest time to get a shiny. And I did all of that with this simulation of a Pokeradar chain. I started with figuring out the time it took to do a regular encounter to set up your chain. This includes pressing the plus button, running into a grass patch that is 4 tiles away, figuring out it's not the Pokemon you want, running away, walk 50 steps, and activate the Pokeradar again, which took about 28 seconds. Then how long would it take to start building your chain? This includes pressing the plus button, walking into a grass patch that's 4 tiles away, catching the Pokemon, mash the B button to get out of all the menus, until new patches would start shaking. This would take about 45 seconds. Then how long does it take at the end of your chain to just click the plus button, have no shiny patches, run around 50 steps and click the plus button again? This took about 11 seconds. Then the amount of iterations I did is the amount of times I checked. For the purpose of this video, I'll do it every time 100 times, but in my original program, and for the numbers you saw on screen just now, I did 10,000 iterations. Then here is the percent of the hunt you're doing. If you're hunting something that say has a 100% encounter rate, of course setting up the chain again would be much faster, as you would not have to do 20 encounters, which you would have to do for 5%. This I changed for all possible encounter rates that you saw on the table just now. Last thing up is the odds. It just says for every chain length what are the odds of finding a shiny per grass patch. This is just found on Cerebi and this will use later. Now the first function I made is a shiny check function. Every time you press your plus button, it will generate 4 shaking grass patches, all having a 1 in so many chance of being shiny. This is what I simulated here. I made 4 numbers that all have a random number between 1 and their odds at that specific chain. And I checked whether one of those 4 numbers is equal to 1. If one of those numbers is equal to 1, that means that that grass patch is a shiny patch. So we can return true. If none of the grass patches are shiny, we can return false. The next function I made was a chain break function. This function is really simple. It just checks after you catch the Pokemon whether your chain breaks. It generates a random number between 1 and 100. If it's smaller or equal to 7, you got into unlucky 7% chance that your chain breaks, and it returns true. The next function I made was how long it would take to start your chain. Amount is the amount of encounters it would take to start your chain, which is 100 divided by percentage, which is done because of the law of averages. If you have a 5% encounter rate, it will take, on average, 20 encounters to start your chain because you found your Pokemon. So then what I return is the amount of time it takes to do an encounter, which was 28 seconds, times the amount of encounters you'd have to do. The last function I made is a chain simulation of exactly one chain. It keeps track of the time, it keeps track of the chain, and the first thing it adds to your time is how long will it take to start your chain, for which I use the chain start function. While your chain has not reached the max chain length yet, which can vary from 1 to 40, and I tested it for all possible options, so while your chain is say not at 25 yet, if that's the max for this occurrence. While it's not 25, we're gonna add the amount of time it takes to build your chain, aka walk to a grass patch, catch the Pokemon, and get out of all the cutscenes. We're gonna do a shiny check. If you get a shiny, that's great. We're gonna return the fact that you get a shiny, which is true, and we're going to return the amount of time it took to get that shiny in this chain. And it's also possible, and even more likely, that your chain breaks. If this happens, we're going to return false, and we're also going to return how long this chain took. Then we're going to add 1 to the chain, and once you reach your maximum chain, which in our specific example was 25, we're going to keep shiny checking until we get a shiny. We're going to return the time it took for that shiny, and also the fact that we got a shiny, and every time that doesn't happen, we're just going to add the amount of time it would take to walk around 50 encounters and press the plus button, which took about 11 seconds. So that's all the functions we use. Now for the actual main program, we're going to repeat something for the numbers 1 in 40. As you might expect, we're going to do it for a 1 chain, and a 2 chain, and a 3 chain, all the way up to a 40 chain. We're going to have our total time equal to 0, and we're going to do something in the iterations amount of time. In our example, it's 100. In my actual program, I did it 10,000 times. We're going to keep track of the time for this specific shiny, and we're going to keep track of whether we already got a shiny. And whilst we don't have a shiny, we're going to do a chain simulation. We're going to add the amount of time that that chain took to the time it took for our shiny. Then we're going to see if we got a shiny out of this chain, and if we didn't, we're going to do another chain simulation. If we did get a shiny, however, to the total time, we're going to add how long this specific shiny took. And we're going to be doing this 10,000 times, or in our example, 100 times. Then if we have gone for our 25 chain, we're going to add that to the 25th index of our list, and then we're going to go for 26. And we're going to do another 10,000 simulations to see how long it would on average take to do a 26 chain. Then we're going to figure out what index has the lowest time it took to get a shiny on average, and then we're going to print that number to figure out what is the optimal chain length to go to. So now if we press the play button, we'll see for a 5% with 100 iterations, which is not very exact, that our program gives go to a chain of 16. Now if I run the program again, it says we should stop at a chain of 13. Now if you do this 100 times, you'd basically have the same result as setting the iteration to 10,000 times. It takes a very long time to load, which is why I did not want to do it in this video, but I found 14 isn't the best number we can get. If any programmers see a mistake in my program, please put it down in the comments, because I'm not the best programmer ever, and I just did this for fun. It is very possible that there's a mistake in my coding, but it does make sense that you do not want to go for a 40 chain, as I explained at the beginning of this video. I hope this video helps you guys, and you will not go for 40 chains anymore if you just go for a single shiny. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys again, probably for my next shiny video.